Hello, fellow Americans. This is Mr. Steffler, and I'm coming to you from room 111 at Clintondale Middle School to talk about the differences of the emerging political parties that were happening during the Washington administration. So we're going to get right into this. The object of this video is to help you out with your assignment, which is on Thursday, the Chapter 11 reading notes. Most of you already have this paper. Some of you, it's going to get distributed during class, so be patient if you don't have this already. In fact, a couple of my students have already done it, so I don't know what they're going to do during class, but I'm going to have that figured out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about Alexander Hamilton, who is a quote-unquote Federalist. And the Federalists are going to emerge as a political party. And I'm going to talk about who the Federalists were, what they believed about certain issues, and how they, used their power. So we're going to go on. We're going to talk about the leader of the Federalists, who was Alexander Hamilton. Now, Alexander Hamilton's very famous, obviously, because of the play that's happening in New York, the Hamilton play, but also he is the first Secretary of the Treasury, and he is a Revolutionary War hero. And Alexander Hamilton is on the $10 bill, so he's a very famous individual. Alexander Hamilton, though, is never president, and one of the reasons that he never ran for president is because he was not born in the United States, which is stated in the Constitution as a requirement to be the president. You have to be born here. So the president of the United States has to be born in the United States, and that's why Hamilton was never able to run for president. He was born in the West Indies. Hamilton was born very poor. Hamilton had very little growing up, but he had a lot of skills, and people recognized his skills, and he ended up earning himself a scholarship to go from the Caribbean island that he lived on to New York, where he got into the Revolution and became a very important aide to General Washington, and then after the war, helped write the Constitution. He also helped write the Federalist Papers. So even though he was poor, he got his education through scholarship and then ended up marrying a woman that happened to be very wealthy. And Hamilton kind of represents the wealthy people in the country at the time, and that's kind of who the Federalists were. So when it talks about human nature, Hamilton basically believed that most people are going to do the selfish thing. Most people need to be governed. Most people need to be watched, because people inherently do the wrong thing. That's kind of Hamilton's view on human nature. He believes that people need to be policed. He believes that people will always do the wrong thing if they don't have to do the right thing, which means you need to have a strong central government. And this is the second part when it talks about what Hamilton believes as it pertains to government. He believes the government needs to be strong because people need to be controlled. And the government needs to be ran by educated people who are probably wealthy, and those people are the most stable in society, and he believes that they would be the best to run the government. So he believes that people are basically shady, and he believes that the rich should run the government because they have the most invested in the government. They're the ones who pay the taxes, and they have the most invested. They have the most to lose. So they should be the ones who are running the government. So that's his opinion on that. Now, when it comes to how Hamilton believes we're going to get there, he believes we're going to get there to this very strong government by increasing our economy, by doing a lot of trade. And because France is in the middle of a huge revolution, and really there's no other countries to trade with, he prefers to trade with the British. So he believes that we should have lots of trade, we should manufacture and use our natural resources to produce products to trade primarily with the British because they have money. And if your concern is that, well, he fought against the British in the American Revolution, I'll just tell you, Hamilton's over it. He's over it. He doesn't care that we fought them 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It doesn't matter to him. They have money. We have products, and he wants to be able to sell our products for that money and then use that money to increase things like roads, to make our economy better, to have stronger law enforcement. He's going to use that money to raise taxes, and with that tax money, he's going to build navies to protect our ships as they go across the ocean. He's got to have big cities for manufacturing to happen. So all these things are very important, and part of what the government needs is they need a bank. And Hamilton believes that the creation of a national bank will help the economy, will extend loans out to people, and make our economy more robust. There will be more people selling more things, and the more stuff that's sold, the more money that's made. So he believes that our relationship with Great Britain, even though it was strained, is very important. Why does he believe that? Well, he believes that because they have the money and they have the power, and we need to get with that. We need to sell our products to them, because if a tree just stands in the woods to Hamilton, it's not worth anything. But if you cut that tree down and you transport it across land to a ship and then transport that tree to Europe where it could be made into something, somebody in America is going to make money, and that person's going to have money because they just made it for the government to tax. The government's going to be able to tax that money and then use it to do other things, like provide navies, law enforcement, roads, and things of that nature. Also, Hamilton basically doesn't trust the French after the French Revolution. So he is totally opposite of Jefferson in the terms of how he feels towards the French. He feels like the French have let us down. They cut off the head of their king, who helped us during the Revolution. It was the king that helped us. In Hamilton's point of view, we don't really need to be friends with France because they're not going to really help us. So now I'm going to talk about Thomas Jefferson, who is more famous than Alexander Hamilton, way more famous. I mean, they have the Jefferson Memorial. There's so many high schools and things named after Jefferson, and a lot of it has to do with his presidency, and also a lot of it has to do with his writing of the Declaration of Independence. So let's talk about Jefferson. I mean, Jefferson was born in the South. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. There's no doubt he has a beautiful mansion. It's called Monticello, and at that mansion, he owned slaves. And this is not something that is that people don't know about. This is very out there, that Jefferson was a slave owner, and that some of the things that he said during the Declaration of Independence might seem a little hypocritical, especially this line where all men are created equal, while at the same time he's a slave owner. However, it turns out that Jefferson is the champion of the common man in America. Jefferson believes in the small farmer. He believes that the best form of government is really barely any government run by the states. He doesn't believe in the federal government. He's worried that the president will become like a king. And Jefferson's view on human nature is, if you just leave everybody alone, everybody will be good. He believes that law enforcement is going to turn into tyranny, is going to turn into abusive police. He believes that the military may rise up and take power from the government or take over states, and that could lead to civil war. So he basically believes that government is the problem in this world, and that a government needs to, if it even exists, needs to be very powerless. In fact, Jefferson really liked the Articles of Confederation. So those are his best form of government and his view on human nature. His ideal economy is everybody spreads out. There are no cities. Everybody gets a farm and gets in their own piece of land, and they leave each other alone. And if everybody leaves each other alone, because we've got all this land in the West, we can move out there, spread out, and then nobody will take from each other because everybody will have enough. So his ideal economy is no foreign trade. We don't want influence. We don't want to have to make a deal with the British. The British are going to take away our freedom. So he believes that if we have foreign trade, we're going to have armies and navies to protect our merchandise going across the seas. And if we have those armies and navies are going to be a threat to the people in this country, just like the Redcoats were a threat to the colonists. So his ideal economy is everybody stays in their own corner of their own little castle, and they do their own thing, and there's no need for police, there's no need for armies, there's no need for taxes. He believes that we should support the French, his relations between the French and the British. He hates the British. He's always hated the British. I mean, the guy wrote the Declaration of Independence. So he hates the British. He thinks that the British king is terrible. He believes that the French people have been oppressed and are now rising up, and that we should support them. And that us not supporting them is a breach in the contract. So these are the differences between Thomas Jefferson, who becomes a Republican, or sometimes it's stated that they're Democratic Republicans. That's a pretty confusing thing. So Jefferson is a Republican and Hamilton is a Federalist, and these two sides are going to face off in the first two elections after Washington retires. So this is the video that's going to help you fill out your reading notes that say Chapter 11, but it's really for Chapter 3. I hope that you are being good for the substitute, and God bless you, and God bless America. Boom.